In the vibrant streets of San Francisco, a city pulsing with artistic rebellion and musical innovation, Stephan Jenkins established the band Third Eye Blind. With a past marked by personal struggles and a passion for music that transcended trends, Jenkins crafted a sound that was both a reflection of his tumultuous life and offered something new to listeners. Today, because you guys requested it, let's talk about the story behind Third Eye Blind's seminal debut record. Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. I would greatly appreciate if you guys did that. The story of Third Eye Blind starts with frontman Stephan Jenkins. Growing up in a sheltered life in Palo Alto, California, his parents were both professors, but they divorced when he was 7. As a kid, he struggled with dyslexia, and in the 6th grade, a teacher told him he would never graduate high school and instead would likely end up in juvie. Wow, talk about an encouraging teacher. He found solace, though, in music because it was one of the few things he could control in his life. Jenkins started playing in bands in high school, first starting out as a drummer playing in a jazz band, but he couldn't read music, but he had a good ear, so he faked it the whole time. He also played in one band called Splash, a 3-piece prog punk band. He also sang in the band as well since they couldn't find a singer. He later got into spoken word hip hop, something you can hear on songs like Semi-Charmed Life and I Want You. As for his school, well, he did end up graduating high school and went on to become a straight-A student at UC Berkeley, getting an English literature degree in 1987. It was following university, he spent some time in New York dating a girl who lived near Washington Square Park. Though the area was full of crime, there was also a real artsy scene, with Jenkins telling Rolling Stone it was a daisy age hip-hop scene. I like the edge on it, even though I know that the edge comes from want and wealth disparity. It also means there's cheap rent still, and it's through that people can actually establish things. By 1990, he was now living in the Lower Haight area of San Francisco. Much like New York, the art that was being created in San Francisco was born out of desperation. He had rented out his room so he could live in a closet, sharing his apartment with 6 or 7 different people, which was situated above a bowling alley. He told Rolling Stone, "Everybody shagged everybody. Everybody was upset about it. We would save up enough for spaghetti and wine." That's what we were living for. The music scene in San Francisco at the time was filled with grunge imitators, punk and post-punk groups. Jenkins, meanwhile, at the time was influenced by Parliament Funkadelic, Joy Division, as well as Cat Stevens and Arrested Development. The music he wanted to create was so different from what was popular in his city at the time, and therefore he felt like an outsider. His life in San Francisco created the backdrop which inspired a lot of the music that he ended up writing for Third Eye Blind's first record, Telling the San Francisco Gate. That was my 1967, My Summer of Love. So much of that first record is drawn from that time. But he was soon met with a terrible medical diagnosis. Around the age of 27 in 1991, he was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, admitting to Rolling Stone, "I had this enormous vitality and energy that was just ripped away. I would go to sleep and have these drenching night sweats and wouldn't be able to sleep. I would wake up hopeful, but then any activity would shut me down." A struggling musician, he of course had no health insurance, but he did push forward, foregoing an opportunity to attend grad school against his parents' wishes, even though it meant taking a vow of poverty to continue working on music. Prior to Third Eye Blind, he was a member of the rap duo group called Puck and Natty, who, believe it or not, in 1992, got a song called Just Wanna Be Your Friend on the soundtrack of the show Beverly Hills 90210.
Yes, a couple of friends will be there. Don't stop pulling out. It gets crowded.
He'd never seen the TV show before, but was paid $7,800 for the song to appear in it. The duo's tapes soon caught the ears of major labels, but they needed management. Well, Jenkins' brother was in a fraternity at the University of California at Davis with Adam Duritz of Counting Crows. Martin Kirkup and Stephen Jensen of Direct Management, who managed the Crows, signed Puck and Natty. The duo took a meeting with Capitol Records, and in a sign of what was to come with his future outfit Third Eye Blind, he told the San Francisco Gate the whole thing was so not rock. He said, discussing who should produce Puck and Natty, "I told them I don't want a second opinion." Capitol chose not to pursue the group. Puck and Natty, meanwhile, soon fell apart after the meeting, and it was towards his final days in the group Jenkins had an idea of forming a rock band. He had already come up with a name, Third Eye Blind, and he'd written a few songs. Jenkins remarked how he wanted to create a band that was do-it-yourself but wasn't bothered by the constraints of indie rock, telling an interviewer, "I didn't feel like I fit into the whole post-grunge noise pop scene. That movement to democratize the form by playing badly, the emotional range was really limited. To me, rock music is all about putting yourself out there, and there was an emotional correctness of safeness in San Francisco scene. We got into it to not fit in." One of the early songs Jenkins envisioned for his rock band was the track Semi-Charmed Life, a song that later became Third Eye Blind's breakout hit. Some of the music for the song came from his partner in Puck and Natty, who Jenkins ultimately paid $10,000 to so he could have 100% ownership over the song. I'm sure that guy's probably kicking himself for doing that deal. Also around this time, Jenkins befriended a waitress who worked down the street who was also writing songs, and they would play each other their compositions. He played her Semi-Charmed Life, and she played him a song called What's Going On. That waitress turned out to be Linda Perry of the group Four Non Blondes. And What's Going On would later be renamed What's Up, and she would go on to have an enormous amount of success. It was a friend of Jenkins that he had met in 1990, a guy named Eric Gotland, who lived in the same area of San Francisco, who was a management consultant by day and a DJ by night, who introduced the musician to engineer David Gleason. Jenkins by this point had an early version of Third Eye Blind, which included bassist Jason Slater, guitarist George Earth of World Entertainment War, to cut demos at George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch. Gleason snuck Jenkins' early version of Third Eye Blind into the Skywalker Ranch. Jenkins told Rick Beato that nobody at the studio questioned why the band was there. They just pretended like they belonged there. It's kind of like when Kramer gets a job at Brant Leland.
Hey, Leland wants everyone in the conference room right now.
Come on, let's go.
The group recorded a handful of songs, including Slow Motion, which was later released on Third Eye Blind's second record, Blue.
Beautiful ruby red, slow motion.
Jenkins, though, struggled to find a stable lineup of his new outfit. He told Billboard, "From the very early 90s, I was working and writing and trying to get a band together. Then someone would quit and join another band, or someone was a drug addict, and I put up flyers to find new members, and then the night of the show, the drummer would quit, and I'd be back to zero." It was through the San Francisco club scene that Jenkins met the classic lineup of Third Eye Blind that went on to record their debut record. This included guitarist Kevin Cadigan, bassist Orion Salazar, and the band went through a handful of drummers. Cadigan seemed like one of the last missing pieces for the group, as Salazar claimed in several interviews that Cadigan didn't join the group until 1994. He remarked to Billboard, "He brought the shoegazer and big guitar chord soundscape musicality to the band that balanced out Semi-Charmed, and he added it to other songs." Once Cadigan joined the group, the guitarist claimed that him and Jenkins wrote a bulk of the group's debut record over a 2-year period, which included some time in a tiny shack behind Cadigan's parents' house in Oakland and at Jenkins' place in the same city. But one song took a lot of refining to get just right, and that was Semi-Charmed Life.
Some kind of life, baby, baby, I want something else.
Jenkins told Billboard, "But I kept recording it because the groove wasn't right. I went back ultimately to the drum machine and put drummer Brad Hargreaves' drums over the loop, which made the song cook. It wouldn't hold up as a loop unto itself. It needed both, which is very rare."
Listening when you say goodbye.
Semi-Charmed Life eventually made its way to Randy Jackson, who liked it, and he took it to Don Einer of Sony Music, who actually didn't like the song. He told Jackson that the song was too long, it was meandering, and he didn't think that Jenkins could sing. When the band played a showcase for Clive Davis of Arista Records, the label had thought the same thing. But also at the rehearsal space was Jeff Buckley, who told Third Eye Blind that he liked their music. RCA did show some interest in the band and gave them some money to do a recording, and they laid down the track How's It Gonna Be.
You take a swing. I wonder, what are we fighting?
But RCA soon passed on the group as well. Everything almost fell apart for the band by July of '95. Third Eye Blind played a showcase that was meant for unsigned acts in the city at the Transmission Theater. A&R people from the label showed up, but Jenkins was sick that night, feeling feverish and nauseous. The crowd also wasn't very friendly to them. Cadigan's amp also blew up a few songs into their set, and it turned out one of the bands on the bill named Protein got signed that night. Third Eye Blind's dismal performance led to them losing their management, their engineer they'd been working with, and Jenkins also lost his publishing deal. He remarked to the San Francisco Gate, "It would have been a good time to quit." Drummer Brad Hargreaves ended up joining the group around this time, and they found producer Eric Valentine through a mutual friend who was a crucial player as the band prepared another round of recording demos to get label attention. That old friend of Jenkins from San Francisco, Eric Gotland, started managing the group, and he also paid for their studio time with Valentine. Valentine had a studio named HOS, which stood for Hunk of. It had no air conditioning, it was really run down, but he had a lot of good old equipment that resulted in some great recordings. Jenkins told Rick Beato that Eric Valentine, funny enough, wasn't a fan of the style of music Third Eye Blind was playing. He was more into heavy industrial type of music. But Third Eye Blind soon took a meeting with Dave Massey of Epic Records, and by the end of the meeting, Jenkins had finagled his way into an opening spot for Oasis's concert in San Francisco that same week. He recalled, "I think he liked my directness. He wasn't threatened by it the way that some people were." The band's opening gig for Oasis, though, wasn't met without some issues, as frontman Liam Gallagher threatened violence at Cadigan after he threw a Coke can in his direction, trying to make it into the garbage. Liam also told the band they'd never make it. But that night, Third Eye Blind was so well received at their hometown show, they went out for an encore and got paid an extra $500. Keep in mind, this version of Third Eye Blind had only played 6 or 7 gigs so far. Two things finally happened around this time that got them a major label deal. The band went through their extensive collection of demo tapes, and with the help of Eric Valentine, they determined which songs were worth presenting to labels in one nice clean package. Couple this with the showcase at the Viper Room in LA, and the stars were finally aligning with Cadigan telling Billboard, "We played really well, but that first record is basically that demo. The record is mostly 80% of the demo we were shopping. That's why we hadn't got signed at these showcases before. We weren't ready. We didn't have those 14 songs on one CD." The band had a number of labels interested in them, and they were offered other deals, but they eventually went to Elektra Records because they seemed the most sincere. The band signed a deal with Elektra in June of 1996. Third Eye Blind also got a publishing deal that the label claimed at the time was one of the biggest ever given to a new artist. The band was also given complete creative freedom, with Jenkins co-producing the record with Eric Valentine. One of my favorite stories about this period of the band came from Salazar, who told the Oakland Tribune how one unnamed label boss brought them into a room and told them, "Boys, you know I really love that song Semi-Something or the Other. Actually, I haven't heard it myself, but from what I hear, the kids are going to love it." This whole process of the band going through and meeting record labels and talking to their executives resulted in the song Graduate. It was one of the last songs actually written for the group's debut record, and it was Jenkins' way of saying, can he just cut out the BS and graduate to getting a label deal? As for the themes on their debut album, Jenkins admitted, the themes are about things you've lost and things you could never have. I very rarely sit in my life and look around and just enjoy it. I'm always pushing forward. As for the name Third Eye Blind, Jenkins credited Camper Van Beethoven for inspiring it, saying that he wanted a smart-ass band name. When developing his band's name, Jenkins thought of a name that, and I quote, had a sense of wit and punk rock irony. The name Third Eye Blind was supposed to refer to a metaphysical third eye. However, when the band was doing press for their first album, they were consistently asked about the name, and they would give different answers. One answer was that it was a joke about hippies from California, while other answers included people who don't follow their dreams. Third Eye Blind released their self-titled debut record in March of 1997. Jenkins recalled to Rick Beato that he was hoping that the record would sell maybe 300,000 copies. The iconic album cover is a photo of model Chandra Boatwright with her eyes closed and mouth wide open. Her own hands and Jenkins were placed on her forehead. Photographer Christine Alessino revealed that she was hired to, and I quote, photograph a young woman with an expressive mouth in my edgy Polaroid style. In order to achieve that expressive appearance, Boatwright wore bright red lipstick and dark eyeliner. The lead single issued was Semi-Charmed Life, and it was ultimately the song that broke the band.
Well, motivation, she comes round and she goes down to me, and make you smile like a trophy.
However, Third Eye Blind's members didn't want to issue it as a single, as it was a call made by their label. The band felt like it didn't really represent their overall sound, and the dark subject matter they thought would be a difficult sell to radio stations as well as MTV. So when it became a hit, the members were pretty shocked.
You do ever what you wanna do, coming over you. Keep on smiling what we go through. One stop.
Catchy and upbeat on the surface, the perfect summer song, the track would also feature elements of hip-hop, with Jenkins telling the Washington Post, "We all grew up listening to hip-hop and we like it a lot. When I was writing that song, I was banging on my guitar as if it were a drum and free associating a rap over it." But upon closer inspection of the lyrics, one finds a dark, twisted tale about the downward spiral of a drug addiction mixed with relationship woes. You may be surprised to learn that the do-do-doot refrain was actually inspired by Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed. As for the morose lyrics of their music, the members of Third Eye Blind chalked that up to their dark sense of humor. Salazar told the Central New Jersey Home News, "That's kind of the gist of our music. Our music has a sheen and luster, but when you dig into it, there are dark elements." The song peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and became one of the most iconic songs of the 90s.
Like it back there to the place where I fell asleep inside you. How do I get myself back to?
As for Semi-Charmed Life, Jenkins told Rolling Stone the inspiration behind the song wasn't about his own personal demons, stating, "I definitely write about my life and the lives I see. It's about a time when my friends and I were at a Primus concert and somebody brought speed. No one had done it before, and like 3 weeks later, all my friends were addicted." In a lot of the press interviews the band did for their first album, the topic of lyrics of Semi-Charmed Life always came up again and again. It resulted in some anxious, intense moments at the band's label and MTV as well. The Washington Post wrote about the controversy in 1998, stating, "Jenkins explained he wasn't glorifying speed addiction, not after what it had done to so many of his friends. In fact, he said he was merely using speed as a metaphor for the allure of false delights that lead us away from life's true pleasures like sex." Jenkins told the paper, "When speed came rolling into San Francisco a few years ago, it seemed very innocuous at first. Before we knew it, though, a large part of our peer group was pretty ravaged by it. Speed's a very bright, shiny drug, and I wanted the song to sound like that, but I also wanted the frustration in there. So a real poetic decision is determining the music. That's why you have that bright melodic chorus, but also the dirty sounding guitar." Ironically, Walmart, which refused to carry albums with controversial subject matter, didn't pick up on the lyrical content of the song and ended up stocking the album. Radio stations, though, did catch on, and they would play a censored version of Semi-Charmed Life. The song confused some listeners, with some people referring to it as "I Want Something Else" or the Do-Do-Doot song. Semi-Charmed Life ended up being a massive hit and has long been considered one of the most popular songs of the 90s. It became a top 40 hit in 6 countries. It also topped the mainstream top 40 chart in addition to the alternative airplay chart, and it also peaked at number 4 on the Hot 100 chart.
Semi-charmed kind of life, baby, baby, I want something.
Lisa Worden, the musical director for California station K-Rock, noted, "That was one of those moments where from the first listen we thought it was going to be huge. We put it right on the air and started jamming it immediately." Jenkins' lyrics really connect with kids who listen to the station. The songs are really easy to relate with. They've got catchy lyrics and the singer's hot. Jenkins offered his own take on why so many people connected with the song, claiming that while the lyrics suggest drug addiction, they could also be interpreted more broadly. As he told an interviewer, "It's a song about always wanting something. It's about never being satisfied and reaching backwards to things that you've lost and towards things that you can never get." I think everybody has some identification with that. That storyline is just an extreme example of that condition. The song appeared in video games like Rock Band, Guitar Hero, as well as numerous movies and TV shows, most notably American Pie. The second single issued was Graduate. It was one of the last songs written for the album, in addition to God of Wine. The song peaked at number 14 and 26 on the alternative airplay and mainstream rock tracks chart. The third single, How's It Gonna Be, was inspired by Cadigan, who was fooling around on an auto harp. It brought feelings of nostalgia to Jenkins about a failed relationship. That song peaked at number 9 on the Hot 100 chart and number 5 on the alternative. Fan favorite, Losing a Whole Year, was issued as the 4th single, with it being a modest hit, peaking at number 13 and 36 on the alternative airplay and mainstream rock tracks chart. The final single, Jumper, a song about bullying and someone taking their own life, was written by Jenkins as a message of humans needing to be more empathetic towards one another. It was another huge hit, peaking at number 5 on the Hot 100 chart, and it was a top 10 hit on the alternative airplay chart. The drum part for the song was done by Hargreaves as a joke when he first heard Jenkins present the song to him, but the frontman liked the drum part so much they kept it in. Songs of loss and regret were pretty commonly found on the record, with tracks like Motorcycle Drive-By telling the story of Jenkins being dumped by his girlfriend. In fact, that song is a big fan favorite amongst Third Eye Blind fans.
By the cigarette ash flies in your eyes and you don't mind.
Third Eye Blind's debut record went on to be certified 6 times platinum in America, selling over 6 million copies. On top of that, in 1997, the band opened for both the Rolling Stones and U2. Salazar remarked how, in an example of irony, his first concert as a kid was U2 during their war tour. Jenkins reflected on the album's success, telling Billboard, "I didn't feel like it would launch us into the stratosphere. I struggled for so long and lived with 7 roommates for so long that I thought I'd always be that. It felt great. The first time I ever heard any song on the radio, I was driving from Oakland to San Francisco and I heard Semi-Charmed Life on Live 105. And I saw the city there and I thought, this is my city. It's what I wrote those records about, and it gave me an incredibly lifted feeling.